All right, I have to do a quick revision. I'm going to just very quickly revise what we looked at last week. Last week we saw that John was taken up into heaven in vision, in the spirit. A door was opened, and what we suggested was that what is actually happening is that John is taken into a place in heaven where something is happening. Something unusual is happening. This is not a normal day in heaven. The voice said he was going to say things that must be hereafter. All right? He was going to see things that must be hereafter. So John was going to see something that would happen sometime after his time, but it was something that would happen in heaven. That's why he's taken into heaven to see this. And that's an important point because it's a heavenly event that is going to be shown. Many people miss this point because the only people, those people who don't believe in a pre-Advent judgment, this makes no sense to them. But if you believe in a pre-Advent judgment, obviously John is being taken to heaven to see this thing happening in heaven. So in order to see what is happening, he has to go up there. If it was something happening on earth, he would not be taken into heaven. He would be shown things happening on earth, but he's taken into heaven because he's going to be seeing things that are happening in heaven. It's an important point that I hope we all can grasp. So the next thing is that he saw a throne set in heaven and one sat on the throne, and this person, of course, is God the Father. He is referred to as the Lord God Almighty, which was and is to come. And John saw, when John entered through the door, when John went through the door, he saw something that looked like this, far more magnificent, of course, but this is kind of like an artist's representation. He saw 4 living creatures around the throne, 7 lamps of fire, 24 elders sitting on thrones, millions of angels standing around and watching what is going on. And there's John looking at what is happening. Then he says that it's similar to what we saw in Daniel, the same scene in Daniel. How do we identify what is happening in Revelation as the judgment? We identify it because we go back to Daniel chapter 7. Daniel 7 shows us the same exact thing. Daniel might describe it a little bit different because, like I said, well, I said it at the webinar on Thursday, I don't believe the Bible is verbally inspired. If it was so, John and Daniel would say the same exact thing. But Daniel saw something and he described what he saw. John saw something, the same thing, and John described what he saw. They use different words, but you get the same picture, right? Brother Juan Carlos and I might look at something and we see, and well, it's like the robe that Jesus wore. You know that one of the Gospels says he wore a scarlet robe, and the other one says it was a purple robe, something like that. One says scarlet and one says purple. Is that a contradiction? No, it's that people look at colors and they see slightly different. Sometimes it's that they describe the same thing a little bit different because the word is not inspired. What happened was that they saw something. Same thing with Daniel and John. Daniel sees the scene and he describes it. John sees the same thing and describes it a little differently. Then we went on to look at the similarities. We saw that in Daniel. Daniel said the thrones were cast down. In Revelation, it says that a throne was set in heaven and one sat on the throne. Same thing. Next thing Daniel saw was that a fiery stream came out of the throne. In Revelation, John says that there were lightnings and thunderings and voices coming out of the throne. Similar, different description. Daniel said that the books were open. Revelation says that there was a book sealed with 7 seals, which was open. Same thing, but a different description. Daniel says that there were 10,000 times 10,000 and thousands of thousands standing before him. Revelation, John tells us that these thousands, 10,000s, thousands, and 10,000s were really angels. who are gathered there to see what John is about to see. They come there to see something happening, and John is there to see it as well. John is privileged to step into heaven at the time of the pre-Advent judgment, and he sees all the beings who are gathered for this judgment, the watchers and the holy ones, the 24 elders, the 4 living creatures, the millions of angels, they are all there. And in this judgment, the central person is the Lamb in the center of the throne, as it were, slain. So we looked at the 4 living creatures and we saw that they had the faces of a man, an eagle, a calf, and a lion. And the suggestion that we made was that these represent, based on what we can see from sources outside of the Bible, these represented the 4 banners under which Israel marched. They marched behind a banner with a man, the first set, behind a lion, then behind a calf, and behind an eagle. There were 4 divisions in Israel when they camped around the tabernacle and when they were marching, and they had flags or ensigns that bore these images. Now we see heavenly beings that have the same faces. And these heavenly beings are full of eyes. They are full of eyes within and behind. And the suggestion that I made is that these beings represent the heavenly beings who are set to guard and to monitor and to record the activities of Israel. These are the guardians and these are the angels that are assigned to the people of God on earth. And so remember that Israel is made up of 12 tribes. We see that in Revelation 7 when the 144,000 are being sealed. It's 1,000, it's 12,000 from each tribe, and the tribes are mentioned. So these tribes would be under the ensign or under the flag of these 4. There's these 4 groups of angelic beings. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm not suggesting that these beings actually look like this. And I'm not suggesting that it is literally 4 beings. Remember, we are looking at a symbolic vision. And we have to look at the meaning of the vision instead of the literal detail of the vision. What it is teaching us is that there are angelic beings who are assigned to Israel, to God's people. And one of the things these beings do is that they see everything. They see everything that happens to us. That's why they have eyes. Jesus mentioned these beings because Jesus said, be careful how you offend one of these little ones that believe in me, because their angels do what? Their angels do always behold the face of my Father which is in heaven. These are angels who have immediate access to God. They are angels who have been assigned to guard and to protect the people of God, and they see everything that happens. And they have been assigned to Israel. Now, again, I want to make the point. Some people look at this and they say that they go too far. They say that because God has assigned angels to us, God himself is not omnipresent. They say that God needs angels to see what is happening. And this is ridiculous, and it is even blasphemous. It belittles God. The point that God uses you to do something, does it mean that God can't do it? God tells me to carry a message. God tells me to carry a message to a man named Cornelius. First of all, Cornelius has a vision. All right? He sees a vision of an angel, and the angel comes to him. Why doesn't God tell him? Why doesn't the angel tell Cornelius what to do? No, 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 no. First of all, God is with Cornelius. Secondly, the angel comes to Cornelius, and still none of them tell Cornelius anything. What does God say? God says, go to Joppa and you'll find a man named Peter. He will tell you what to do. So they travel 2 days journey down to Joppa. They find Peter, and 2 days back, 4 days later, Peter arrives. And Peter said, why have you sent for me? And they tell Peter that they saw this vision. And Peter says, wow, amazing. What a lesson God just taught us. And Peter tells them what they need to do. Why didn't the angel tell them? Why didn't God give Cornelius a vision instead of sending for Peter? It does not mean that God is unable to do something. It is that there are chosen agencies who do particular things. This is the way God does things. And we should not look at this and belittle God and belittle God's power because God chooses to work in a certain way. And I feel very strongly about this because there are there are there are poor, limited people who do not know the God of heaven and who belittle God and say God is unable to be omnipresent because if we believe God is omnipresent, this is spiritualism. Poor, puny, silly people who belittle the God of the universe and try to bring him down to their limited understanding. But anyway, I'm off on a tangent. What I'm really saying is that these four living creatures, I believe, to represent the beings who have been assigned to guard and protect and make a record of everything that is happening in the church of God on earth. Why is this so? Because in the judgment, the evidence is to be presented. God is not just dealing with things on the basis of his own knowledge. That is why God uses agencies, because if God doesn't use agencies, then God is the only one who knows what is going on. A judgment doesn't make sense because God already knows the verdict. God already knows what everybody did. Why have a judgment? There is a judgment not for God's sake, but for the sake of the rest of the universe. And if it's for the sake of the rest of the universe, it cannot be based on God's private information. It must be based on evidence that others can see and that others can present. So, can you see why these living creatures are full of eyes? God is trying to say they see everything. So, they are qualified to be there in the judgment because they have all the information. That's what God is really saying to us. Then he saw, this is where we stopped last week. There is a strong angel who proclaims, "Who is worthy to open the book and to loose the seals thereof?" Now, here's an important point. Why has John been taken into heaven? I want us to make note of this point, brothers and sisters. It should help us to understand the importance of what John is about to see. John has been taken to heaven precisely for the purpose of the opening of the book. This is a great event that is so important that the millions of angels are gathered together, that the guardian and the recording angels are there, that the 24 elders are gathered together. This special event in heaven, in this special place, it is all for the purpose of the opening of the book. So the opening of this book is one of the most important events in the history of the Christian church, in the history of God's dealings with the universe, in restoring the universe to its proper place. The opening of this book is important, and I'm going to show you why I say so. Let me just change my view for just a moment. Go to my Bible. All right. Let's go to Revelation. Revelation chapter 5. I want you to notice something. Let me show you something. It talks about the Lamb taking the book. Look at this. And when we read the Bible, brothers and sisters, I mean, I don't need to tell you this, but I want to emphasize it. Think about what you are reading, and if possible, put yourself in the situation of what you are seeing. One of the things that helped me in studying Revelation, I read through the book over and over and over. Maybe I've read through Revelation at least 50 times, maybe. And I didn't just read, I tried to take the time to understand. But on one of the readings, I took a little notebook. And everything that it describes, I tried to draw a picture. I'm sorry I lost the notebook now because I had dozens of pictures drawn. And while I was doing that, it gave me a lot of understanding that I did not see when I was just reading. But look at what happens. John is watching, and he sees Jesus coming, and he takes the book out of the right hand of God. Everybody's watching. the gathering of millions of angels, the four living creatures, the 24 elders, everybody is looking and they see Jesus, the Lamb, step up to God the Father, and he takes the book out of his hand. I'm going to come back to that because there's a question that I want to answer. But look at what happens. When he had taken the book, something happens. The opening of the book is something tremendous because it says, when he takes the book, the 24 beasts, the four living creatures, the 24 elders, they fell down before the Lamb, having every one of them harps and golden vials full of incense or odors, which are the prayers of saints. It says, and they sung a new song, saying, thou art worthy to take the book and to open the seals thereof, for thou wast slain and hast redeemed us to God by thy blood out of every kindred and tongue and people and nation, and hast made us unto our God kings and priests, and we shall reign on the earth. Now that's interesting, but the point I really want to get to is what happens next. Look at what it says next. And I beheld and I heard the voice of many angels round about the throne, and the living creatures and the elders. The number of them was 10,000 times 10,000 and thousands of thousands, saying with a loud voice, worthy is the Lamb that was slain to receive power and riches and wisdom and strength and honor and glory and blessing. When does all this happen? It is when the book is open. Look what happens next. And every creature which is in heaven and on the earth and under the earth, and such as are in the sea, and all that are in them, I heard, saying, blessing and honor and glory and power be unto him that sitteth upon the throne and unto the Lamb forever and ever. What causes this great outburst of praise to God and his Son? What causes it? What is it that leads the entire universe, every creature in heaven, on the earth, under the earth, in the sea, and everything in them? What is it that leads everybody to burst out praising God and his Son? It is the opening of the book. Whatever is in it, whatever is in the book, brothers and sisters, is the key to bringing an end to the damage that was done to God from the beginning. The smear that was brought upon his name, the doubt that was cast upon the character of God and the government of God. This is going to be answered by the opening of that book. This is why the opening of the book is so important. This is why Revelation is so important. This is why John is taken up into heaven to see this greatest of all events.
And also to Brother David, may I say, also is to me, it's not just the opening of the books, but who is worthy to open the book?
That is a part of it, Sister Anita, but I'm going to come back to that part because that's a part I skipped. I wanted to get to the end first because I wanted us to see the result of the opening of the book because I want us to understand why John was taken into heaven. He was taken into heaven to see an event of great significance, and that is what happens when the book is open. That's the event. That's the event of the ages. Okay? So Jesus' job was not finished at Calvary, neither was it finished at Pentecost. What we are privileged to see is the last part of Jesus' mission in glorifying God and in bringing an end to the great controversy. And that has to do with the opening of the book. That is very important. And I hope all of us can catch the significance of what I have just said. Now, let me go back to my PowerPoint here quickly. And all right, who is worthy to open the book and to loose the seals thereof? So, you know, I should probably read this from the Bible. Let me see. Let me go back to the Bible and just read this passage a little bit. I'll come back to the PowerPoint in a moment. It says that the strong angel is proclaiming, who is worthy to open the book and to loose the seals thereof? Now, here's the point. Verse 3. And no man in heaven nor in earth, neither under the earth, was able to open the book, neither to look thereon. It's interesting that it says, no man. Maybe it's just a quirk of the way they write, but I'm thinking it could have said no one, but it says no man. And it kind of suggests that there is need of a human being to open this book. And I believe that that is, whether that is what it means or not, it absolutely is the truth. It has to be a human being. Nobody is worthy to open the book. And John says, I wept much because no man was found worthy to open and to read the book, neither to look thereon. Now, this is a vision. And you ask the question, why does John start to cry? If I'm having a dream or a vision, and I see that nobody can open the book, how is that my business? How does that concern me? Why is John so concerned that he does not only start to weep, but he weeps a great deal. He starts to bawl because nobody can open the book. Why? Let me explain it to you. Have you ever been in a dream and you see something that makes you very sad? In normal life, it would make you sad, but your dream not only shows you something, but it also puts a feeling in your heart. Somehow, John recognizes that he has been brought to this place to see something. And when he looks around, he sees that everything is focused on the book. Everybody is intently interested in the book and the opening of the book. It's like you look around at the church you loved and you see the darkness that comes in and nobody stands up to speak the truth and you want to weep. It's like Jesus looking at Jerusalem and seeing that he has tried so hard with these people and nobody is responding and he weeps. John gets that kind of feeling. He knows something of great importance is right before him and nobody can open the book and he starts to bawl. All of this, of course, God is setting the stage for us to understand. He's setting the stage. And one of the elders said unto me, weep not, don't cry. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, hath prevailed to open the book and to loose the seven seals thereof. Ah, okay, I think I'm doing this the wrong way. Okay, I got it. All right, now, first of all, there's an important thing here that I want us to take note of. The angel says, don't cry. He says, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has prevailed to open the book and to loose the seven seals. Then John says, I looked, and in the midst of the throne and of the four living creatures and in the midst of the elders stood a lamb as it had been slain, having 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God sent forth into all the earth. Now, the first thing that John hears, the first thing I want to point out is that John hears a statement. What he hears about is a lion. This is what he hears. This is not what he sees. While I was drawing the pictures, this is what I saw, okay? Normally, if you're a little bit careless, you might say, okay, he saw a lion, then he saw a lamb. No, he didn't see any lion. He heard about a lion. His ears picked up some information, and then his eyes picked up some more information. Later on, we are going to see why this is important. I'm not going to make a big thing of it at this point, but I'm going to come back to it. So maybe we can all bear that in mind. So there is a reason why God describes him as a lion. He gets an audible description, and then he gets a visible description. Both things are true. Jesus is the Lion of the tribe of Judah. Here we see his kingly attributes. A lion is supposed to be the king of beasts. A lion is supposed to be a courageous, conquering, victorious animal. He's also said to be of the tribe of Judah. And what this means is that God had made a promise to David that he would have a son upon the throne of Israel forever. And so Jesus is legitimately, according to God's promise, Jesus is legitimately the king of Israel. So he's the lion from the tribe of Judah. But also, he is also the one who made it possible for us to be saved. He is the slain lamb. He's the one who gave his life for us. So he's both our king and he's our sacrifice. He's both our Lord and he's our substitute. Why is this presented to us? Because remember the question, who is worthy to open the book? We see two qualifications in order to open the book. First of all, you have to be the king of Israel. No, before that, first of all, you have to be a man. Secondly, you have to be the king of Israel. And thirdly, you have to be the one who died for humanity. Nobody else can open the book. Do you see why nobody could open the book? No man in heaven or earth. Do you see why none of the four living creatures could open the book? You see why none of the 24 elders could open the book? You see why even God himself can't open the book? Because the qualifications are very specific. One person in the universe is qualified to open the book. This gives us a clue about what is written in the book. We'll come to that. So Jesus is represented as both the lion and the lamb. These two descriptions tell you about different sides of his character and of his work. And let me give you a clue. When we come to Revelation 7, God does the same thing in terms of the 144,000. Two different descriptions of the same people. First of all, they hear something. John hears something and then he sees something. Same people, two different descriptions. That's why I'm asking you to bear this in mind, because we're going to come upon it again. So he steps up to the Father and he takes the book. And of course, we already looked at this last part. When he takes the book, every creature in heaven and in earth fall down. First of all, they praise Jesus and they say, let's take a little look at this. Let's take a little look at some of the things that are highlighted here. Maybe I should use my highlighter. All right. It says, when he had taken the book, this is what happens. The four beasts and the 24 elders fell down before the Lamb. They have harps and golden vials full of odors, which are the prayers of saints. I'm going to come back to this. Golden vials full of odors, which are the prayers of saints. I'll come back to this in a moment. Let's leave that behind and come back. And they sing a new song saying, you're worthy. So first of all, the one who opens the book must be worthy. You are worthy to take the book and to open the seals. Why? Here is what makes him worthy. For thou wast slain and hast redeemed to God by your blood out of every kindred and people and nation. This is what makes Jesus qualified to open the book. There are certain very strict qualifications for opening the book. First of all, as we pointed out, you had to be a man. You also had to be the king, the promised king of Israel. But here's the important thing. He was slain and he has redeemed us. And he has made us kings and priests unto our God. So this is what qualifies him. Now, the question is, how does this qualify a person? What kind of qualification is this? And I'll explain to you. Who is worthy? Who is worthy to stand in judgment on a person? Remember that we say, this is the judgment. Brother Andrew is in the legal business. He's a lawyer, right? For those who don't know, Brother Andrew, Judah Mighty, is a lawyer. So he can back up some of what I'm saying. One of the reasons why when you have a trial, a court case, they choose a jury. The idea is that theoretically, in order to have a fair trial, you need to have some of your own peers. Let me look at you all just for a moment, and then I'll come back to this. I want to look at your faces and make sure you're looking at mine while we're talking, okay? I want to explain something. One of the things that I want to use America as an example, because America is such a country that some of the examples that you want to look at in some things, you can find it there. In America, a lot of the complaints that people have sometimes, especially black people, is that the jury that tries them is made up of mostly white people. You know that argument? Why would that be a problem? Because it is believed that white people in general, nobody please, I'm not trying to suggest anything about the races. I'm just talking about something that happens in the culture. They believe that white people in general have never stood in the place where black people stand in terms of their history and their circumstances. So they believe it's not equal for somebody who has never been in your place to judge you. And it's a principle that we all understand. Don't judge a man until you have stood in his shoes. You see a man on the street begging and you say, you lazy bum, go and find something to do. You don't know that he has been searching for work for the past 5 weeks and he can't get anything. And you don't know that he has it's like Howard told me something. His brother-in-law has a gun. And one night he was at his brother-in-law's place. And they saw somebody moving outside. And somebody was moving by the clothesline, by where they had some clothes hanging on the line. And his brother-in-law pulled out the gun and fired in the direction. And they saw when somebody ran off. When they went to look, you know what they found? They found a bag with some baby clothing. They found a bag with some baby clothing and some baby food in it. And the both of them felt so relieved that they had not shot this guy. Because you can look at the bag and they put two and two together and they realize that it's probably somebody who is suffering and he can't find any way to take care of his little baby, and he comes trying to pinch something and look, the guy nearly got shot. Anyway, I'm drifting off path a little bit, but what I'm saying is it's a principle of justice that the only person who is qualified to judge you is somebody who understands your situation. Let me show you another verse where Jesus enunciates the same principle. John 5 and verse 27. Look at this statement. It says, for as the Father hath life in himself, so hath he given to the Son to have life in himself, and hath given him authority to execute judgment also. Why? Because he is the Son of Man. Did you ever read that verse and think about what it is saying? It says that God has given Jesus the authority to judge. He mentions executing judgment, but why is Jesus chosen to judge humanity? Because he is the Son of Man. He's one of us. If he were not one of us, he has no qualifications to judge us. Nobody can judge us except one who is one of us. So he's our Savior. He died and gave his life for us. So he knows what he did for us. He knows what it takes to overcome sin. He knows what it means to be a human being. So therefore, he is qualified to stand in the judgment to save us, to stand in the judgment and to go through whatever it takes to examine the church and to determine and to lay out the evidence before the universe, because he is the Son of Man. So, thou art worthy. The angelic beings say, thou art worthy. Now, another thing I want to point out is that it says that these four living creatures, not the four living creatures, the 24 elders, they have golden vials full of odors. And the word odors here It really should have been translated as incense, which are the prayers of saints. I don't know if we discussed this before, but I want to discuss it again. Here are the 24 elders in heaven, and they represent a group of people who are involved in offering the prayers of God's people to God. Now, that sounds a little strange because we know that God hears our prayers, but remember, we are looking at things in the context of a public judgment. Some time ago, a few weeks ago, when I was talking about the legality of prayer, I made the point that when we are making petitions that involve public events, when we are praying in a public way and asking for petitions, we need to pray audibly because there are other beings who are involved in the process by which our prayers are answered. Let me repeat that. In the process by which prayers are answered, God's opinion alone is not the only factor. Here you see people, the 24 elders, and they are involved in the prayers of the saints. This is something I didn't understand at first. And this is why sometimes when we pray, if it were God alone, our prayers would be answered instantly because God's heart is towards us. But in answering our prayers, like we saw in the book of Daniel, what God does, it must be fair and open and just. It must be demonstrated that what he's doing is the right and proper thing in each situation because God is not running heaven like a dictator. I'm not going to go into that in much detail again this afternoon because we went through that a few Sabbaths ago. But I just wanted to point that out as well. It's something to remember that heaven is not run like a dictatorship. It's run, and especially in the time of the judgment, everything is being done above board in a public way that everybody can see exactly how God is working and why he's doing the things that he's doing. So this should just about bring us to the end of what I have to say this afternoon, but let me make sure that I have covered everything. Yes, we actually went right down here. So this brings us to the end of our presentation for this afternoon. And I want to just pause a little bit before we have our closing prayer to see if there are any questions that anybody has on our presentation. I know Revelation is not the easiest book to understand, so I'm trying to go a little bit slowly. I'm trying to take it one step at a time. I don't want to rush. I know we are just at chapter 5 and we started in chapter 4, but I want to take it a step at a time so that we get the main points, the important points. Whatever we're going to bypass is what is not so clear to us, then we might bypass it. But what is clear and what I really wanted to get across to all of us is the importance of what we're about to examine. It is the key to the end of God's work on behalf of mankind. Yes, Brother Sam, go ahead.
Who are the elders, 24 elders?
All right, that's a question that comes up often, and I can give you my opinion. Not everybody agrees, but I believe that these 24 elders are representatives from planet Earth. Obviously, they are people, obviously, and obviously they are people because they are involved in offering our prayers because they are human beings. They have been in our shoes. I believe there were people who lived under the old covenant age who were resurrected and taken to heaven.
That's what I because they's in heaven before before the judgment is over. They're there.
That's right, brother. Absolutely.
Question,
yes, Brother Joel. Let's Sister Diane and then you.
Okay. I thank you for going over this again. It doesn't stick with me. Revelation just doesn't stick with me. Daniel, I got. Revelation doesn't stick. And I've always wondered, why would a book be so difficult if it's for the last days and for people to understand? And I don't know how true this is, but I heard when they were taking out the books, when, people, and I think the Catholic Church, I don't know who, had, there were other books to the Bible, at one time before the one that we have. And when they were making that decision, they almost took out Revelation. And the reason why they almost took out Revelation because of this, but then they figured because it's such symbolic and so hard to read, people weren't going to understand it anyway, so they left it in. So I thought that was interesting. That's why I got left in. So it could have been one of those books that was removed. But I do wonder why. It's not a book you can just read and it answers itself like Daniel does. Daniel, you know, answers itself right there. Now, of course, this is a revelation to Daniel. Daniel's a closed book, but the revelation doesn't seem to be revealing in its nature.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, Revelation is Revelation itself has many statements in it that indicates that it is not something that is to be understood easily. There are a couple of places when it says, "Here is wisdom. Here's a mystery." So there are places where it is clear that it is not intended to be understood superficially. And I understand what you're saying, Sister Diane. It's not only that it's difficult to understand; it's that there is so much confusion and there are so many rabbit trails
Hmm.
that we have been led into. I think that's a part of it. Speaking for myself, okay, as I said, I have been through this book over and over. I can testify before God. I've come to the place where the shape of the book is like a roadmap before my eyes. The shape, the meaning, and the purpose of the book is very clear before me. What I'm going to do, since you made that statement, I don't want to do that at the beginning, but I'm going to lay out the book
Hmm.
again in chart form. I know if I do it at the beginning, it will confuse people because I'm going to be talking about things that we haven't looked at yet. So I don't quite know how to do it in such a way that it fits in at the right time. But I want to do this because once we see the big picture, it becomes very, I won't say all the parts become simple to understand, but the general meaning and the direction of the book becomes easy once you see the big picture. So I
It's like
promise I'm going to do
putting the pieces to the puzzle together. Then the picture becomes clear once the puzzle gets put together.
that. Exactly. Exactly.
Okay, because I need that. I mean, yeah, I need something because it just doesn't stick with me. I can get
Okay.
it when I'm with you. When I'm in it, I can follow. But
Okay.
later it's like, oh, what is this again?
Yes. We will
Thank you.
we will we'll work on it, and I'll definitely focus on trying to simplify it in that way. Yes, Brother Joe, go ahead.
Unfortunately, I've missed a lot of the evening presentations in Revelation that you have done, and a lot of what I spent my time learning in terms of the extra biblical material that we have in the Adventist church growing up, still from time to time affects my understanding of the meanings that we're having here. There is an overlapping of the things I'm starting to understand now with some of the things that I need to probably let go of. But when I ask you, I'm looking at listening to it again, David, and the question that comes to my mind is that the scene that we're looking at here of the throne putting place and the judgments and everything that is involved here, is this happening over a long period of time, or is this a particular event? I know you have answered the question already, but just looking at it again, it seems to me that this is happening over an extended period of time and not a particular event over a short period of time. Um, where in the timeline is this really taking place, according to your understanding?
Right. The best answer I can give to this question. Okay. One of the concluding events of this judgment is the Day of Atonement. One of the concluding events is the experience of the atonement. Let me not say the Day of Atonement, but the experience of the atonement. Now, so I understand that this judgment is a process that precedes the Day of Atonement experience. So the question is, when would this judgment begin? The best answer I can come up with, and I'm not saying this answer is perfect, I'm just saying it's the best answer, When you go to Daniel chapter 8 and it talks about the 2,300 days, that is the best answer that I can come up with, because what we saw when we looked at the book of Daniel is that the prophecies parallel each other. Babylon, Medo, Persia, Greece, Rome, the four parts of the image. Babylon, Medo, Persia, Greece, Rome, the four animals. Medo, Persia, Greece, Rome, the ram and the he goat. And the corresponding event in Daniel 7 is that the judgment was set and the books were opened. When you go to chapter 8, the corresponding event is, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed or restored. So the restoration of the sanctuary corresponds to the judgment was set and the books were opened. So when you compare the chapters like that, I conclude that the judgment is related to the 2,300 days, the end of the 2,300 days. So that's the best answer I can give to that, Brother Joe.
The specific reason, David, why I ask, and I appreciate the answer, is and it's multiple things, but verse 6 of Revelation 5, and I beheld, and lo, in the midst of the throne, and the four beasts, and in the midst of the elders stood a lamb, as it had been slain, having 7 eyes, 7 horns, and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God sent forth into all the earth. That idea of 7, well, chapter 4 and verse 5, you see where the 7 spirits are before the throne of God. Here in chapter 5, verse 6, you see the 7 spirits on the Lamb. It's no longer before the throne. I don't know if there's a correlation between the two in your mind, but it's now on the Lamb, and then it says, sent forth into all the earth. I think of the day of Pentecost, where Christ has been found worthy, and so now he has been given the authority and power to be able to share his spirit with the whole world. I think of Ephesians 4 when Jesus says that, well, Paul says, that he that went down into the earth is he that also went up, that he might fill all things. Am I wrong in identifying what I'm seeing here as a possible understanding of that which is happening here? Because based on what you just said, the answer would be no.
Let me explain my understanding of when you think of what John is looking at in the context of the judgment, every element that is in place is related to the judgment, especially those entities that we see right surrounding the throne. They are the central figures in the judgment. You can see this from the 4 living creatures. Okay, clearly we understand why they are there. We see the 24 elders. Clearly we understand why they are there. We see the lamb that is slain. We understand why he's there. Why is the Holy Spirit there? It's represented as 7 lamps of fire. What does this indicate? The Holy Spirit is the other element that is necessary in the judgment, which is the omnipresence of God. Not only do the 24 elders have access to the prayers of the saints, or however that comes to them. Not only do the 4 living creatures have the knowledge of everything that is going on, but the Spirit of God enables God to have personal knowledge of everything and personal involvement in everything. So the Spirit of God is central to the process of the judgment, because it is the involvement of God Almighty himself. Now, when you look at Jesus, the Lamb that is there, he also has the 7 spirits of God. And as you pointed out, this points to the omniscience of Jesus. He not only is our judge, but he's also the one who is not only working for us, but working in us. He's working in us. He's better qualified to judge us than any being in the universe. How does he work in us? Because he has the 7 spirits of God. Not only does he work in us, but he knows everything about us because he has the 7 spirits of God. This again is another indication that the Holy Spirit is not a distinct, separate entity, because the Holy Spirit is in 7 lamps of fire. It's also in 7 eyes, and it's elsewhere too. It's everywhere. So this is just God showing us the manifold ministry of the Holy Spirit by showing
Okay,
us these.
so sorry, David. I didn't realize you were I thought you had finished there. I was going to make a statement based on it. So I hear what you're saying, and I'm hoping to hear more and to learn more. It's my plan to try and be here for all the remaining of the study, so I can get a deeper understanding of it, because I think it's important. But let me just ask the question outright: should this scene here be disqualified in your mind completely as Jesus returning from the resurrection to the dead and standing before his Father in this scene that we're seeing here? In terms of being able to receiving the book, when John asked who is able to receive the book, in my mind I get this idea of Jesus returning and he's found worthy, he's receiving the book, the seals are about to open, the seven spirits are now on him, he's poured out his seven spirits into the earth, and there's a continuation of what is happening over a period of time that starts with the return of Jesus Christ to heaven. You're saying no to that.
If you want to know my strong opinion, I absolutely repudiate that point of view,
Okay.
Brother John. Yes.
I'm sure you have a good reason that maybe as you teach and we go along, I'll be able to understand better.
Yes. I mean, I am as convinced as I can be that this is in the time of the Day of Atonement.
Okay.
And that it's an end time event. And John was told, I'm going to show you things that must be hereafter. At this point, Pentecost was long gone.
That is correct. Good point.
Yeah,
Good point.
he was not taken to heaven to see a past event, but a future event.
Good point. Thank you.
Okay, Brother Joe.
Brother David,
Yes, brother. Yeah.
I don't want to jump ahead of you, but when I looked at all the seals, when Jesus opened the seals and the events that has to take place, I don't see anything regarding the judgment of the saint that is revealed in any of those things that occur that comes out of the seal.
The word judgment is a touchy word. It's a tricky word because it can have different implications. Okay. So when we talk about a judgment, sometimes the idea is an examination in which each person is put on trial and his guilt or innocence is determined. But the judgment, a judgment has a broader implication, which can be an examination of certain principles or an examination of a certain entity. I mean, there are not details given as to what precisely is involved in this judgment. But as we look at the seals that are opened, what we see is that different aspects of the church or of the kingdom of Christ are put on display. We're going to come to this, but different aspects of the church of Christ are put up on display before the heavenly beings. I'm sure this is a generalized view. I'm sure that in heaven, the details of it are not given. The details may be more complicated than how it appears in the vision. God is giving us a snapshot of what is happening because that's all we need to really know. What we need to know is that it's an examination of different aspects of the Christian church, the kingdom of Christ. That's what it's about. So the details of individual people being judged, I don't think that is emphasized. And my understanding is that it's not so much about your individual destiny because every Christian is already saved. There's no threat to our salvation, but it may involve a determination as to whether you're a Christian or not. I think it does because when it comes to the 144,000 and the mark of the beast, the mark of the beast crisis is to prove who is a Christian and who is not. So it's not a judgment by books, but it's a judgment anyway, because the crisis is going to prove what we are made of. So if it happens for the living, I would imagine that there's something like this that takes place as far as the dead are concerned too. Yes, Sister Di.
So, is it that the names get put in the book by profession? You profess Christ, your name gets put in the book.
I
And
believe
how
so.
this thing comes out of the book as a result when it's proven that you're not really his.
I believe so because in the parable Jesus says, "Let the wheat and the tares grow together till the harvest."
Mhm.
So the judgment is really a judgment that separates the wheat from the tares, the sheep from the goats. So clearly, up to this point, there doesn't seem to be any distinction between the wheat and the tares because the devil has planted tares among the wheat. So we're all in the kingdom. But Jesus says he will take out of the kingdom all things that offend. So those who are not genuinely the children of Christ are to be separated at that point.
And so then that he says, but they say, wait a minute, when they find out, wait, what, how come I'm not here? I did this and this and this. He says, but wait a minute, but I never knew you. So
Exactly.
there was never in Christ. They were never in Christ. They were just professing. And that's the
Exactly.
thing why examining our own selves is important.
Yes. Yes.
Rather than worrying about a judgment for somebody else in the world, we really need to be examining our own selves to see if we're in the faith. Because that's going to be the part that's going to be scary for people when you've done all and lived this and, you know, been the first to raise your hand, me talking all the time, whatever it is, you know, the
The,
proof will be,
the
I'm
only
sorry.
people who worry, and they ought to, are the people who don't know Christ.
Mm-hmm.
You should be worried.
Mm-hmm.
And if you know Christ, worry never enters your mind.
But
Even
there's a
even
deception. But there's a deception for people. This because this Christianity, and I say it that way because it has put people in a false sense of knowing Christ.
Mr. Dye, let me tell you, you can't fool your conscience. Listen to what John says, that perfect love casteth out all fear. And Jesus says he gives us peace. The people who know Christ, they know that they know him. I can't be convinced otherwise. And the people who don't know Christ, they have that lingering fear. They're afraid
Mm,
because it's not so much a doctrine or performance. Something inside makes them uneasy. And on the day that Jesus says, I never knew you, they realize that it is true. And they always knew it was true, but they deceive themselves. So you're right. We should examine ourselves if we are in the faith.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Thank you.
But Brother Andrew, go ahead.
Um, yeah, I'm wondering if I'm being okay. When I listen to your description of the judgment and the way the scene here being depicted, I, Psalm 24 is coming to mind, and I'm wondering if I too, like Brother Joel, is missing what's happening here, and that. So I'm sure you of course should be familiar with Psalm 24, where it says, "Who shall ascend into the hill of the Lord? Who shall stand in his holy place? He that hath clean hands and a pure heart." And it goes on, "Lift up your heads, O ye gates, and be ye lifted up, ye everlasting doors, and the King of glory shall come in." Is there any parallel between this particular scene in Revelation with this particular Psalm of David? Do you see any connection here with what is being described? I'm just asking because that's what comes to mind when
Sure.
I'm hearing.
I understand. There is the Jews had a problem with Christ because they had a difficulty reconciling his first coming with the prophecies of his second coming. So they never accepted Christ because the Bible represents him as a glorious conquering king. And I think sometimes it happens because Pentecost was one triumph of Jesus Christ, the glorification of Jesus Christ. Pentecost was a moment of great triumph when Satan was kicked out of heaven. But the point that I am emphasizing, and that this is what I'm seeing in Revelation, is that there is another moment of great triumph. The coronation of Christ, the exaltation of Christ, the establishment of his kingdom did not end at Pentecost. Pentecost was the beginning of the kingdom of God, not the end, the beginning of the kingdom. And when you look at the Jewish economy, there were 7 great events. As a matter of fact, it didn't begin at Pentecost, it began at Calvary. In the Jewish economy, there were 7 great events that constituted the ministry of Christ for saving humanity and for restoring the kingdom to his Father. 7 great events. First of them was Passover. We agree it didn't end at Passover. It goes on to the Feast of Unleavened Bread. It didn't end there. The resurrection morning, the offering of the first fruits, it didn't end there. Pentecost, being glorified. That seems like a great high point, but it didn't end there, because there are the 3 fall festivals still to be fulfilled: the blowing of trumpets, the Day of Atonement, and the Feast of Tabernacles. Jesus' work is not over until we come to the Feast of Tabernacles. This is the climax, and this is why in Revelation chapter 11, which we are going to come to, you see that there are great voices in heaven saying, the kingdoms of this world have become the kingdoms of our God and of his Christ, and he shall reign forever. That has not happened yet. So the question is, Psalm 24, is it referring to Pentecost? Or is it referring to the Day of Atonement? Or is it even referring to after the end of the 1,000 years? So there are different events, but at each stage, the key player is Jesus Christ. And the key ingredient is the humanity of Jesus and the kingship of Jesus. Now, this is why when you come to Revelation chapters 4 and 5, it's very important to settle the question, what event is this? And what time is this in the history of the world? As I said to Brother Joel, when I look at all the evidence that is presented in Revelation, when I combine it with what we see in the book of Daniel, because that's a key element too. In the book of Daniel, Daniel chapter 7, it's very clear that this is the pre-Advent judgment. The judgment is set and the books were opened. It's not Pentecost. It's the time of the judgment, just before Jesus comes. The verdict of the judgment is that the beast is destroyed and given to the burning flame, and the Son of Man receives an everlasting kingdom. It's not Pentecost. It's an end-time event, which I identify as the pre-Advent judgment, which climaxes in the Day of Atonement. So, a long answer, Brother Andrew, but that's how I would respond.
Thank you.
You're welcome, my brother. And Sister Esther, you can go ahead, and I think I'm going to close off after you.
Well, I have a question, and then I have a praise report, and then I have a prayer request.
Go ahead with all of that.
I want to know, when is the time of the latter rain? We're supposed to ask for rain at the time of the latter rain, and there's so much going on in the religious world that it would seem that the latter rain is falling in places, but we're not even praying for it. At least I haven't heard us praying for it.
Maybe we haven't prayed as a group, Sister Esther. Maybe we have been involved in things in the past where we had people meeting together praying for it. I mean, I've been in groups and I've been in fellowships where we have prayed for the latter rain until we were blue in the face. So I think maybe a lot of people are thinking, well, we better be sure this time. But myself, maybe I don't label it as a latter rain, but I have been praying. I have been praying for God to pour out his Spirit in a special way upon his people. And I'll tell you why. I am aware, at least I have a conviction, I don't know, I think many of us have the same conviction. I am convinced that God is opening up an understanding of his word in ways that I never saw in my life. I'm convinced. And I believe that if God is doing this, it is because he's preparing us for something unusual. I believe this. I pray and I ask God to open the doors. You think I'm happy to see 700 people watching my videos on YouTube? I don't care if it's my videos. I don't care. But the things that we are understanding, I feel like I want a few billion people to hear at least. So I would like something extraordinary to happen to really cause the message to come before the entire planet. So I've been praying for that, Sister Esther. And And I think
It
all
would
of us,
seem that this should be the time for the latter rain, right?
everything is pointing in the direction that we are at the last moment of time. So it would be.
Okay.
David, isn't it
And
already happening? Can't it really be seen even in what you just said? In Deuteronomy 32, verse 2 and 3, speaks of doctrine as being the means by which the rain is falling, an understanding of the principles of God much more clearly. Jesus says, when the Holy Spirit comes, to guide you into all truth. So it's a deeper appreciation and understanding of truth. And I think that what we're experiencing here on the platform is evidence that even if it's not falling fully, it is at least starting to rain.
Yes, that's an encouraging way of looking at it, Brother Joel. I think the thing is, I suppose most people, we are looking for the Pentecostal power. And you know, understandably so, because you know what I realize? I talk to God about this, and I think, look here, John Wesley went out into the field and he stood up and he started to sing. In no time, he had 5,000 people standing out in the field. You go and stand in the town square and stand in the field and start singing, and what happens? See what happens? The most that might the most that might happen, they might come and pick you up and carry you off to the lunatic asylum. One little child or two little old ladies might come and stand up and hear you. Today, you're competing with TV, video, cell phones. Nobody is going to stop. You can go there with your megaphone and loudspeaker. Even when you watch them on YouTube, one or two stragglers on the street stop. Look, I believe we need the power of the Holy Spirit in terms of really grabbing the attention of the world. I think all of us agree with that. But I'm not countering what you said, Brother Joel, that
Yes.
yes, the Spirit of God is at work clearly in terms of opening our understanding to things that were really necessary for us to learn.